Hi guys, my name's Barry and welcome back to the channel. In today's video we'll be looking at horror movies that you didn't know were remakes. Did you ever watch a horror movie and think, wow, that looks pretty good and very original, only to find out, oh, hold on a minute, this isn't even an original movie, it's actually a remake. I think the idea for this video came about when The Fall Guy came out. I know that's not a horror movie, but The Fall Guy came out and a lot of people are saying it bombed at the box office because it's an original idea. And then people started to find out, oh, wait a minute, it's not an original idea. It's based on the old TV show from the 70s. And I thought to myself, wouldn't it be cool to go into horror movies that some of us knew were remakes, but some people didn't know at all was a remake. And throughout the years that they loved this new movie, they didn't have any clue that it was based on an original concept or another movie. So in this video, I've narrowed it down to 10 horror movies that maybe you didn't know were remakes. Of course, there will be some in there that you yourself will know is a remake, but there'll be some in there you'll be thinking, oh, I didn't know that was a remake. That's good to know. We'll start off with a more obvious one, The Fly from 1986, starring Jeff Goldblum and Gina Davis. This was a fantastic film from the 1980s, and of course, most people know about this movie, but there are some people that didn't know this was a remake, and I think the reason for that is because the original came out in 1958, also titled The Fly, and it's got the same concept, and Vincent Price is in this one. But I think one of the biggest reasons that people thought that The Fly from 1986 was original, or a couple of reasons, was it was so great and it looked like an original concept, but at the same time, it was a remake of a movie that came out in the 50s. Now, of course, the 50s is years ago now to people, so some people watching The Fly from 1986 won't know about a film from 1958, whereas in 1986, of course, people would know at the time that was a remake. Maybe some people didn't, but a lot of people did, because 1958 to 1986 is only 28 years, so that's generally round about the same, a normal time for a film to be remade. But when you look at the film now in 2024 and watch the 86 Fly, a lot of people don't know that that's an actual remake. Next up, we'll go with The Thing from 1982, John Carpenter's The Thing. Now, I'm getting the more obvious ones out the way so that we can get into the more interesting ones after this. So I do promise you guys it's not all obvious titles, but with John Carpenter's The Thing, it's a remake of the 1951 classic The Thing from Another World, also known as The Thing sometimes, and it's even got the same title font at the beginning of the movie. Now, with John Carpenter's The Thing, a lot of people think it is an original concept, and they would be kind of right in a sense, because although The Thing takes the title and also a similar plot where there's a spaceship that lands on Earth and they're trying to get away from this thing, but in the original one, that was the concept. But in John Carpenter's The Thing, not only is that the basic premise, there is a sort of whodunit aspect to John Carpenter's movie that obviously isn't present in the original movie. I personally don't consider John Carpenter's The Thing a remake, and whenever I do like a top horror remakes, whatever category I'm doing, I don't tend to put The Thing in there because I don't consider it a remake, whereas officially it is a remake. Next up, we have The Last House on the Left from 1972. You didn't know that was a remake? Well, it is. It's a remake of The Virgin Spring from 1960. This was directed by Ingrid Bergman and stars Max von Sydow, and this movie even won Best Foreign Language Movie at the Oscars, so The Virgin Spring has an Oscar. Now, it is a foreign film, it was made in Sweden, of course, Max von Sydow, and it's about these two girls, one of them's pregnant, and they go to a church to deliver candles, and on their way back, they go through the woods, and they stumble upon these criminals who do similar things to them as the girls in The Last House on the Left from 1972. Next, we've got Knock Knock from 2015, starring Keanu Reeves, and it was directed by Eli Roth. That was also a remake. It was also almost a shot-for-shot remake, whereas in the original one it was called Death Game in 1977, and it starred Seymour Cassel and the absolutely amazing and stunning Colleen Camp. It really is only the title that's different in this one because it's still got the same premise. Two crazy girls go to a rich man's house and they assault him and they exploit him. Next we've got Let Me In from 2010, but only just a couple of years before that in 2008 we had the Swedish original Let the Right One In. Now I think the thing about horror remakes that are Americanized is a lot of people don't or are not interested in foreign language movies. And I'm not saying they're bad for that, because I'm not generally interested in foreign language movies myself. But if you watch a horror remake without knowing that it was a remake itself, you wouldn't go into Swedish horror movies anyway if you're not interested in foreign films. So it is sometimes, to some people, it's obvious that movies like Let Me In are remakes because we know about the original movie, but some people just don't watch foreign language films or not interested in them. So when they watch a film like Let Me In from 2010, they think it's an original concept. Maybe they think the idea came from somewhere, but they don't realise how much of a remake it actually is unless they see the original from 2008. Speaking of foreign language movies, this one is a strange one because we have Funny Games from 2007. Now this is a remake of the original one, also named Funny Games in 1997. So there's only 10 years difference between them. But it's the same issue here because Funny Games is also a foreign movie. Not only is it a foreign movie, the absolutely bizarre thing is it was directed by Michael Haneke, who also directed the remake in 2007. So the similarities are identical. It's almost like he made a foreign film for his own country and decided, if anybody does a remake of this, I want to do it myself and do it my own way. And it turns out that might be a good thing because both Funny Games movies are fantastic. Next is Cape Fear from 1991, starring Robert De Niro and directed by Martin Scorsese. And anything directed by Martin Scorsese you would always think was an original concept, but obviously he directed The Departed, which is a remake of Infernal Affairs, which we can't put on the list because it's not a horror, but Cape Fear is a horror, and the original came out in 1962, and it's the same title, Cape Fear. It starred Robert Mitchum, who played Cady, that Robert De Niro played, and it also stars Gregory Peck as well. Now, I think the only difference really between the two is obviously Cape Fear from 91 is more menacing. Cady, played by Robert De Niro, is absolutely crazy in Cape Fear, and of course he's crazy in Cape Fear in 1962, but it's a more subtle version. Of course it came out in 1962 as well, but a lot of people prefer the remake in 1991 because of how great it was, but people who do love the 1991 remake really didn't know it was a remake. Next, we've got The Ring from 2002. Now, this might be obvious to you because it's still kind of fresh in a lot of people's minds, and I think it's fresh because it is a really good remake. But there was a time in the early noughties where Japanese films were being Americanized left, right, and centre. And when you got the second, the third, like you had like Shutter, you had The Ring, you had The Grudge, you had all these types of movies, The Eye, all these movies were coming out thick and fast that we already knew these films were remakes, but there were a group of people who just genuinely didn't know, and it might be because The Ring from 2002, the American one, was so good. Ringu from 1998 is a film that maybe you would distance yourselves from because you don't like foreign language movies, like we've mentioned before, but there were a group of people who just didn't know that the 2002 remake was an actual remake. But if you fast forward 22 years, Japanese films are not really being remade that much anymore in American cinema, especially in horror. So it's become a forgotten phase in horror, especially for the new generation. So the new generation watching The Ring from 2002 just genuinely don't know that it's a remake of a Japanese horror movie named Ringu from 1998. Invasion of the Body Snatchers from 1978 is the next one. That's also a remake on this list. Now, the thing about Invasion of the Body Snatchers is, and the reason I'm putting it on the list is because we already had Body Snatchers in 1993 and we had The Invasion from 2007. So when people watch The Invasion or Body Snatchers in 93, they always think they're remakes of the 1978 movie, and maybe some of the aspects of those are the case. But when you think that, you also think that the 1978 movie is the original movie, but it's not. We obviously had another one before that from 1956. That was, of course, the old black and white one that starred Kevin McCarthy, and that's the one that basically started it all with these invasion type movies. Of course, you've got other films that have used the idea, like movies like The Faculty from 1998, that they use the invasion of the body snatchers idea in it. And it's not just The Faculty, a lot of movies do that, but movies with invasion or body snatchers in the title, their original comes from 1956. Last up, we've got I Am Legend from 2007, starring Will Smith. Now, this is a remake. I don't know if a lot of people know that it is a remake, but I think people who think or know that it's a remake think it's a remake of The Omega Man from 1971, starring Charlton Heston. Now, Charlton Heston plays the same character, Robert Neville, and it's almost the identical script, but you would be wrong. The Omega Man is not the original. It's similar to Invasion of the Body Snatchers, where there's more than one remake. The Omega Man was also a remake, not just I Am Legend. The first movie would be The Last Man on Earth from 1964, starring Vincent Price. Now, this film, just like the other two, is based on the novel I Am Legend, and it's an identical premise. The only difference, which is quite funny, the only difference between the very first one from 1964 and the other two, The Omega Man and I Am Legend, is in the original, the semi-vampire zombies are also scared of garlic. So that is 10 horror movies that you may have not known were remakes. Of course, there's some on there that will be obvious to you, but remember, they're not obvious to everyone. But I'm sure there's at least one or two titles on this list that maybe you didn't know about. But is there any other horror movies that were remakes that maybe I don't know about, guys, or anybody else would not know about? Leave the list down below, let me know what you think, and I'll talk to you soon.
Meeting adjourned.
Be right back!
What are you waiting for, huh?
Coming to get you, Barbara.
Ever played Skin the Cat?
Someone's in the back seat!